Most people would never look twice at a 1954 penny. But what if I told you that one small letter on this coin has caused collectors to search through millions of cents for decades, and that certain examples have quietly sold for prices far higher than face value? Today, we're talking about the 1954 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks ordinary at first glance, yet holds an important place in American coin history and collector curiosity. This coin is part of the famous Lincoln cent series, first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. By 1954, the Lincoln penny had already been in circulation for 45 years and had passed through world wars, economic change, and major shifts in American life. The 1954 D Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint, which is identified by the small letter D located just below the year on the front of the coin. In 1954, the United States was in a period of post-war growth. Factories were booming, families were moving into new homes, and everyday commerce required huge numbers of coins. Pennies were needed for gas stations, grocery stores, newspapers, and vending machines. Because of this demand, the Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents that year. Even though many were made, this coin still matters. Every Lincoln penny tells a story of its time, and the 1954 D penny reflects an America focused on rebuilding, saving, and moving forward. The design of the coin is simple and iconic. On the front, you see Abraham Lincoln facing to the right. This portrait was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner and remains one of the most recognizable images in American coinage. Above Lincoln's head is the phrase, "In God we trust." To the left is the word liberty, and to the right is the date, 1954, followed by the small D mint mark. On the back, the coin features two wheat stalks framing the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum across the top. This is why collectors often call it a wheat penny. The wheat design was used from 1909 until 1958, just a few years after this coin was made. The metal composition of the 1954 D Lincoln penny is 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This gives the coin its warm reddish-brown color when new. Over time, depending on how it was stored, the color may turn brown or dark chocolate. Coins that still retain their original red color are far more desirable to collectors. So why would anyone care about a penny that was made by the millions? The answer lies in condition, errors, and collector demand. While most 1954 D pennies are only worth a few cents today, some examples stand out. Coins that were never circulated, meaning they were never used in everyday transactions, can be worth significantly more. These coins show sharp details, clean surfaces, and little to no wear. Collectors also look closely at the mint mark. The D on some 1954 pennies appears slightly doubled or repunched. This happened when the mint mark was stamped more than once by hand, sometimes at slightly different angles. These repunched mint marks are subtle, but they are real, and collectors actively search for them. There are also error coins from 1954 D that increase value. These include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered, and die cracks, where small raised lines appear due to worn minting equipment. While these errors are not extremely common, they are rare enough to make certain coins much more valuable than average. Auction records show that high-quality 1954 D Lincoln pennies have sold for impressive prices. Circulated examples usually sell for just a few cents to $1. However, uncirculated coins with strong red color have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars. In top condition, certified by professional grading services, some examples have reached several $1,000s at auction. These are not everyday finds, but they prove that even a common-date penny can become valuable under the right conditions. Identifying a genuine 1954 D Lincoln penny is fairly straightforward, but it's important to know what to look for. First, check the date and mint mark on the front. The D should appear just below the year, not floating or oddly shaped. The coin should feel solid and weigh about 3.11 grams, which is standard for copper Lincoln cents of this era. Look closely at the details of Lincoln's face and the wheat stalks on the back. Genuine coins have clear, well-defined lines. Many fakes or altered coins show soft details, unusual surfaces, or incorrect color. Be cautious of coins that appear too shiny or have signs of tampering around the mint mark, as some people attempt to add or alter mint marks to increase value. One surprising fact about the 1954 D penny is how many still exist today. Because so many were saved by collectors during the wheat penny era, rolls and collections of these coins still surface decades later. This makes it a favorite among beginner collectors, who enjoy searching for high-grade examples without spending a lot of money. Another fun detail is that this penny was in circulation during a time when a penny had real purchasing power. In the 1950s, 1 cent could buy candy, gum, or even contribute meaningfully towards small household items. That makes this coin a tiny piece of everyday American history. Collectors love the 1954 D. Lincoln penny not because it is rare in general, but because it rewards careful observation. It teaches patience. It encourages people to learn about minting errors, coin grading, and historical context. For many collectors, finding a clean, bright red example of this coin is just as satisfying as owning a more expensive rarity. Today, the 1954 D penny continues to appear in collections, inherited jars, and old rolls tucked away in drawers. Most people overlook it, but collectors know better. They understand that value is not just about rarity. It's about condition, history, and the story behind the metal. So the next time you come across a wheat penny dated 1954 with a small D beneath the year, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Examine the color, the details, and the mint mark. You might be holding a simple piece of copper, or you might be holding a small reminder that even ordinary objects can become extraordinary when you understand their story. And that's what makes coins like the 1954 D. Lincoln penny so fascinating. They quietly wait, hidden in plain sight, for someone curious enough to notice them. Imagine reaching into a jar of loose change, pulling out an ordinary brown penny, and realizing it comes from one of the most unusual years in American coin history. A year when the U.S. Mint quietly changed the rules, removed mint marks, and created coins that still confuse collectors today. This is the story of the 1967 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin that looks common, but carries a history that is anything but ordinary. The 1967 Lincoln penny is a 1 cent coin featuring Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. At first glance, it looks almost identical to many other pennies from the 1960s. There is no mint mark under the date, which is exactly what most people expect from a Philadelphia coin. But here's the twist. In 1967, the absence of a mint mark does not automatically mean the coin was made in Philadelphia. In fact, it opens the door to a fascinating chapter in U.S. coinage. To understand this coin, we have to go back to the mid-1960s. At that time, the United States was facing a serious coin shortage. Rising silver prices caused people to hoard coins, especially dimes and quarters. The public feared that coins would soon be worth more melted down than spent. To fight this problem, the U.S. Mint made several emergency decisions. One of the most important was removing mint marks entirely from coins dated 1965, 1966, and 1967. The idea was simple. If people could not tell where a coin was made, collectors would be less likely to hoard specific issues. The Mint hoped this would keep coins circulating and ease the shortage. As a result, pennies struck in Philadelphia, Denver, and even San Francisco in 1967 all look the same. None of them carry a mint mark. The 1967 Lincoln penny was produced in huge numbers. Tens of millions were struck to meet demand. This high mintage is one reason many people assume the coin has no value beyond face value. But coin collecting is not just about how many were made. It is also about condition, history, and unusual variations. The metal composition of the 1967 penny is classic and important. It is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. This was before the U.S. Mint switched to copper-plated zinc pennies in the early 1980s. Because of its high copper content, the 1967 penny already carries intrinsic metal value, especially during times when copper prices rise. The design is familiar but meaningful. On the front, Abraham Lincoln faces right, a design first introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial appears, with tiny columns and even a small image of Lincoln visible inside the building. This reverse design was used from 1959 to 2008, making the 1967 penny part of a long and iconic era. Now let's talk about what makes some 1967 pennies special. While most are worn and common, a small number stand out due to condition or errors. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process. These mistakes are not intentional, and that's exactly why collectors love them. Some known errors for 1967 pennies include off-center strikes, where the design is not properly aligned on the coin. Others show doubled dies, where letters or numbers appear slightly doubled due to a misaligned die. There are also coins struck on the wrong planchet, meaning the penny was made on a blank intended for another coin. These error coins can be worth many times more than a normal penny. Condition is another major factor. Most 1967 pennies were heavily circulated. Finding one in near-perfect condition, especially with full original red color, is surprisingly difficult. Collectors use grading services to evaluate coins on a scale, and a high-grade 1967 penny can be far more valuable than people expect. So how valuable can this coin really be? In circulated condition, most 1967 no-mint mark pennies are worth only a few cents. However, uncirculated examples with strong luster can sell for several dollars. High-grade coins certified by professional grading companies have sold at auction for much higher prices. Special mint set coins from 1967 deserve special attention. That year, instead of proof coins, the mint produced special mint sets, often called SMS coins. These have a slightly satin-like finish and sharper details than regular circulation coins. A 1967 SMS Lincoln penny in top condition has sold for hundreds of dollars at auction. In rare cases, exceptional examples with deep color and flawless surfaces have reached even higher prices. Collectors pay close attention to auction records because they show what people are actually willing to pay. Over the years, certified 1967 pennies graded at the very top of the scale have sold for impressive amounts, especially when demand is high and supply is low. These results remind collectors that even common-looking coins can become valuable under the right conditions. With value comes the risk of fakes or altered coins. While counterfeit pennies are not extremely common, altered coins do exist. Some people try to modify other dates to look like rarer coins, or polish pennies to make them appear uncirculated. Polishing, however, actually lowers a coin's value. To identify a genuine 1967 penny, start with the basics. Check the date carefully. Look at the shape of the numbers and compare them to known examples. The weight should be about 3.11 grams. The color should match natural copper aging, not an unnatural shine. If you suspect a coin might be valuable, professional grading services can authenticate and grade it. There are also fun and surprising facts about the 1967 penny that many people don't know. Because mint marks were removed, some collectors once believed that certain no-mint mark coins were errors. It took years for the public to fully understand the mint's decision during this period. The 1967 penny is also one of the last regular-issue pennies made entirely of copper, before rising metal costs forced changes in later decades. Another interesting detail is that the San Francisco Mint did produce pennies in 1967, but only for special mint sets. These coins still have no mint mark, making them visually identical to others unless you know what to look for. This adds another layer of mystery and appeal for collectors. Today, collectors love the 1967 Lincoln penny not because it is flashy, but because it represents a turning point. It tells the story of a nation dealing with economic pressure, metal shortages, and changing priorities. It reminds people that even small objects can reflect big moments in history. For many collectors, this coin is also deeply personal. It may have been the year they were born, or the year their parents started saving change. Finding one in high condition feels like preserving a tiny piece of the past. And for new collectors, the 1967 penny is affordable. Most people would never give this penny a second look. It looks ordinary, worn, and easy to ignore. But what if I told you that a single small detail on a 1982 Lincoln penny with a D mint mark could quietly make it one of the most important modern pennies ever made, and in some cases worth far more than 1 cent? Today, we're uncovering the story of the 1982 D mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin born during one of the most dramatic turning points in U.S. coin history. This is not just a penny. It's a survivor of change, confusion, and experimentation inside the U.S. Mint. The 1982 D Lincoln penny was produced at the Denver Mint, identified by the small D mint mark just below the date. On the surface, it looks like millions of other Lincoln cents. Abraham Lincoln faces right on the front, just as he has since 1909, with the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the year 1982. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to honor Lincoln's 150th birthday. But 1982 was no ordinary year for pennies. It was the year everything changed. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, the price of copper was rising fast. So fast, in fact, that it began to cost more than 1 cent to make a 1-cent coin. This created a serious problem for the U.S. Mint. Pennies were becoming too expensive to produce, and the government needed a solution. That solution arrived in 1982. For the first time in modern history, the U.S. Mint officially changed the metal composition of the penny. For decades, pennies had been made mostly of copper. But starting in 1982, the Mint began producing pennies made primarily of zinc, coated with a thin layer of copper. This new penny looked almost identical, but inside it was completely different. And here's where things get fascinating. During 1982, both copper pennies and zinc pennies were produced at the same time. Not only that, but the Mint also used two different date styles, known today as large date and small date. That means 1982 pennies exist in multiple varieties, created during a year of transition and experimentation. The Denver Mint struck millions of 1982D pennies, but here's the key detail most people miss. Officially, the Denver Mint was only supposed to strike zinc pennies that year. Copper pennies with a D mint mark were not supposed to exist, yet a few do. Somehow, a small number of 1982D pennies were accidentally struck on leftover copper planchets. These are known today as 1982D copper pennies, and they are among the rarest modern Lincoln cents ever discovered. To understand why this matters, you need to know the difference between the two metals. A traditional copper penny weighs about 3.11 grams. A zinc penny weighs about 2.5 grams. That small weight difference is one of the easiest ways to tell them apart. The design of the coin didn't change in 1982, but the feel did. Copper pennies sound different when dropped. They feel slightly heavier in the hand, and over time they age differently. Zinc pennies often develop bubbling or corrosion when the thin copper coating wears away. Copper pennies, on the other hand, age more gracefully. This difference is exactly what makes the 1982D copper penny so special. Only a handful of confirmed examples are known to exist. These coins were never meant to be released. They slipped through during a chaotic production year when the Mint was rushing to meet demand while changing materials midstream. Because of this, collectors consider the 1982D copper penny a major Mint error and a historic transition coin. So how valuable are we talking? Verified examples of the 1982D copper penny have sold for tens of thousands of dollars. In private sales and auctions, prices have reached well over $10,000, and in high-grade condition, some experts believe values could climb even higher as more collectors compete for the few known examples. Even regular 1982D zinc pennies aren't completely worthless. While most are only worth face value, certain varieties, especially small-date versions in excellent condition, can sell for a few dollars or more. It's not life-changing money, but it's still far more than 1 cent. The key is identification. If you think you might have a valuable 1982D penny, the first step is to check the mint mark. Look for the small d below the date. Next, weigh the coin using a precise digital scale. If it weighs close to 3.11 grams, you may be holding something extraordinary. If it weighs around 2.5 grams, it's zinc. But weight alone isn't enough. Counterfeits and altered coins do exist. Some people attempt to plate zinc pennies or modify coins to trick collectors. That's why professional authentication is essential. Reputable grading services can confirm the metal composition and determine whether a coin is genuine. Another thing to watch for is damage. Drilling, plating, or sanding can change a coin's weight. A real 1982D copper penny will show normal wear consistent with circulation, not signs of tampering. Now here's a surprising fact. Because so many people ignore pennies, some of these rare coins may still be hiding in old jars, drawers, or collections inherited from family members. Many people simply assume all pennies are the same. They're not. Collectors love the 1982D penny because it represents a moment when U.S. coinage changed forever. It's the dividing line between the old copper era and the modern zinc era. It's also a reminder that mistakes happen, even at the highest levels of government production. Another fun detail is that 1982 is the only year in which Lincoln pennies exist in 7 major varieties. That makes it a favorite year for collectors who enjoy hunting for subtle differences. It's like a puzzle hidden in plain sight. Beyond value, there's history here. This coin tells the story of inflation, metal shortages, and the realities of manufacturing money. It shows how something as small as a penny reflects much larger economic forces. Today, collectors actively search through rolls of old pennies hoping to find one overlooked treasure. Coin shops, estate sales, and even pocket change are still checked for 1982 pennies, especially those with a D mint mark. And that's the beauty of this coin. You don't need to be rich to start looking. You don't need special tools to begin. All it takes is curiosity and attention to detail. So the next time you see a 1982 Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it. Turn it over. Check the mint mark. Feel the weight. Because in rare cases, that simple penny could be a silent witness to one of the most important transitions in American coin history. And sometimes, the most valuable stories aren't made of gold or silver. Sometimes they're hiding in copper, disguised as something you've held 1,000 times before. If you want to know which other everyday coins could be hiding surprising value, keep looking closely. History has a way of slipping into our hands when we least expect it. Imagine pulling a simple penny from your pocket, the kind most people would ignore, and realizing it could be worth more than a brand new car. What if that penny came from 1992, had a small letter under Lincoln's date, and carried a secret that only a handful of collectors truly understand? Today, we're talking about the 1992 D mint mark Lincoln penny. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. It's the kind of coin millions of Americans use to buy gum, newspapers, or make exact change at the gas station. But hidden within this everyday penny is a story of history, precision, and a rare mistake that turned a common coin into one of the most talked-about modern Lincoln cents. The 1992 D Lincoln penny was struck at the Denver Mint. The small D mint mark below the year tells us exactly where it was made. This coin is part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which began in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. For decades, this design was a familiar sight in American pockets, purses, and piggy banks. In 1992, the United States was going through major changes. The Cold War had ended, technology was advancing quickly, and everyday life was becoming more digital. Yet the penny remained largely unchanged. The U.S. Mint continued producing billions of 1-cent coins to meet daily demand, and Denver played a major role in that production. The front of the coin features Abraham Lincoln's profile, a design first created by sculptor Victor David Brenner in 1909. Lincoln faces to the right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date along with the D mint mark to the right. It's a design that had already stood the test of time for over 80 years by 1992. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial is shown, complete with the tiny statue of Lincoln seated inside. Above the building are the words "United States of America," and below it, 1 cent. Look closely, and you'll also see the phrase "E pluribus unum," meaning out of many one. In terms of metal, the 1992 D penny is made mostly of zinc with a thin copper coating. This change happened in 1982, when rising copper prices forced the mint to adjust the composition. So while older pennies feel heavier and are mostly copper, the 1992 D cent is lighter and more modern in its makeup. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Most 1992 D pennies are very common. Millions upon millions were made. In worn condition, they're usually worth just 1 cent. Even in shiny, uncirculated condition, many examples sell for only a small premium. But within this sea of ordinary coins, a tiny number stand out as something extraordinary. The key lies in the letters A and M in the word America on the back of the coin. Normally, on Lincoln Memorial cents from this period, the A and M in America are clearly separated. There is a visible gap between the two letters. This is known as the wide AM design, and it's what you should expect to see on most 1992 D pennies. However, a very small number of 1992 pennies were struck using the wrong reverse design. On these rare coins, the A and M are almost touching. This is called the close AM variety. What makes this so special is that the close AM design was not supposed to be used on circulation pennies in 1992. It was intended for proof coins, which are specially made for collectors, usually at the Philadelphia Mint. Somehow, a reverse die meant for proofs ended up being used on a small number of regular coins. For the 1992 Philadelphia penny, the close AM variety is already rare and valuable. But for the 1992 D mint mark penny, it is even rarer. Only a few confirmed examples are known to exist. That scarcity is what drives serious collector interest. Because so few have been found, the 1992 D close AM penny has sold for astonishing prices. Verified examples in high condition have sold for tens of thousands of dollars at major auctions. Some collectors have paid more than the price of a luxury car for a single penny, all because of two letters sitting just a little too close together. This is not hype or rumor. These sales are documented and they show how powerful small details can be in the world of coin collecting. So how can you tell if you have a rare one? First, check the date. It must read 1992. Next, look for the D mint mark under the date. No D means it's from Philadelphia, which is a different variety altogether. Then turn the coin over and look closely at the word America. You may need a magnifying glass. On a common coin, you will clearly see space between the A and the M on the rare close AM variety. The letters are nearly touching, with little to no gap. It's important to be careful here. Many people mistake worn coins or damaged letters for a close AM. True close AM coins have a very specific look, and professional authentication is essential before assuming any high value. This brings us to fakes and misunderstandings. Because of the fame of this variety, some altered coins exist. Unscrupulous individuals may try to file or modify letters to make them appear closer. Others may simply misidentify normal coins. This is why reputable grading services are so important. If you believe you have a 1992 D close AM penny, the next step is professional verification, not selling it online based on a guess. Even if your 1992 D penny is not the rare close AM variety, it can still be interesting to collectors if it's in excellent condition. Coins with full original luster, no wear, and sharp details are always more desirable than heavily circulated ones. There are also minor errors collectors watch for, such as off-center strikes, weak strikes, or unusual die marks. These don't usually reach the dramatic values of the close AM variety, but they can still add interest and modest value. One surprising fact about the 1992 D penny is how long it took for the rare variety to be discovered. For years, people spent these coins without any idea that a tiny design difference could change their worth so dramatically. Even today, there's a chance that undiscovered examples are still sitting in old jars, drawers, or inherited collections. Collectors love this coin because it represents the thrill of the hunt. It proves that valuable coins are not limited to ancient history or gold treasure. Sometimes, they come from modern times and hide in plain sight. The 1992 D Lincoln penny also shows how human error plays a role in history. A small mix-up at the mint created a rarity that would fascinate collectors decades later. It's a reminder that perfection is rare, and mistakes can sometimes become treasures. For new collectors, this coin is often a gateway into the hobby. It encourages people to slow down, look closely, and appreciate the details most overlook. For seasoned collectors, it's a challenge and a prize, one that few will ever own. So the next time you see a 1992 penny with a D mint mark, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a moment, turn it over, look at the letters in America. Because every once in a while, an ordinary penny tells an extraordinary story. And who knows, the most valuable coin you'll ever find might already be in your hands, waiting for you to notice what everyone else missed. Most people would walk right past this coin without a second thought. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And yet, in the world of coin collecting, the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny has quietly earned a reputation that surprises almost everyone who learns about it for the first time. This is the kind of coin that hides its story in plain sight. It's not ancient. It's not made of silver or gold, and it was produced in massive numbers. But under the right conditions and in the right form, this penny can be far more interesting and sometimes far more valuable than its face value suggests. So what exactly is the 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and why do collectors still talk about it today? Let's start with what this coin actually is. In 1995, the United States Mint produced Lincoln pennies at several facilities. When a penny has no mint mark, it means it was made at the Philadelphia Mint. For decades, Philadelphia pennies traditionally carried no mint mark at all. So the absence of a letter under the date isn't an error. It's a clue about where the coin was made. By 1995, The Lincoln Memorial penny had already been in circulation for over 35 years. The familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back were part of everyday American life. These pennies passed through grocery stores, gas stations, school lunch lines, and piggy banks across the country. At first glance, the 1995 no-mint mark penny looks exactly like millions of others. But the story becomes much more interesting when you look closer. The year 1995 sits at an important moment in modern U.S. coin history. This was a time when the mint was producing enormous quantities of coins to keep up with circulation demand. Pennies were still widely used, and quality control, while generally good, was not perfect. That's where the 1995 penny becomes special. The most famous and desirable version of this coin is known for a striking error that collectors actively search for. It's called the 1995 double-die obverse penny. And yes, these coins were struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which means they carry no mint mark. A double die happens during the coin-making process, not after. When the die that stamps the coin receives a misaligned impression during its creation, parts of the design can appear doubled. This is not damage. This is not wear. It's a genuine minting mistake. On the 1995 double die penny, the doubling is most visible in the word Liberty, and in the date 1995. The letters appear thick, slightly separated, and almost shadowed. Once you see a real example, it's hard to forget what it looks like. What makes this especially fascinating is that these coins entered circulation just like normal pennies. People spent them. People saved them unknowingly. Some still sit in old jars and drawers today. Now let's talk about the coin itself. The 1995 Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc with a thin copper coating. This composition began in 1982, when the mint switched from mostly copper pennies to save on production costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and has a smooth edge. The front features Abraham Lincoln, a design originally created by Victor David Brenner in 1909. The back shows the Lincoln Memorial, with Lincoln's statue faintly visible inside if you look closely. Nothing about the design screams rare. That's exactly why so many valuable examples were overlooked for years. So why is this penny considered valuable at all? The answer lies in condition and variety. A regular 1995 no-mint mark penny in worn condition is usually worth only face value. Even in uncirculated condition, most examples are only worth a small premium. But the double die variety is a different story. Collectors prize it because it's clear, dramatic, and easy to verify compared to many other era coins. It's also a modern era, which appeals to newer collectors who may not have access to older, rarer coins. At auctions, authenticated 1995 double die pennies have sold for impressive amounts. Lower-grade examples can sell for several $100s. High-grade examples, especially those certified by professional grading services, have sold for thousands. One particularly well-preserved example, graded in near-perfect condition, sold for over $5,000. And that's for a penny most people wouldn't pick up off the sidewalk. That contrast is what keeps collectors searching. Identifying a real one is crucial because not every 1995 penny is special. The first thing to check is the mint mark. If there's no letter under the date, it was made in Philadelphia. Next, examine the word Liberty. On a genuine double die, the letters appear clearly doubled, not blurry or worn. The date is another key area. The numbers should show distinct separation, especially on the 9 and the 5. If the doubling looks flat, smeared, or uneven, it may just be damage or machine doubling, which is far less valuable. Counterfeits do exist, though they're usually crude. Some people try to alter normal pennies to mimic doubling. That's why serious collectors rely on magnification and eventually professional authentication. If you ever think you found one, avoid cleaning it. Cleaning can reduce a coin's value dramatically. Even gentle cleaning can leave microscopic scratches that grading services can see instantly. Now here's something many people don't realize. Not all valuable coins look old. In fact, some of the most exciting finds in modern coin collecting come from the 1990s and even the 2000s. The 1995 double die penny helped spark renewed interest in searching pocket change. It reminded collectors that treasure doesn't always come from the distant past. Sometimes it comes from years you remember vividly. There are also fun details surrounding this coin that make it even more appealing. For example, the 1995 double die is often compared to the famous 1955 double die penny. one of the most legendary era coins in U.S. history. While the 1995 version isn't as rare or as valuable, it's sometimes called the modern cousin of that classic coin. Another interesting fact is that many examples were discovered years after 1995. People didn't immediately realize what they had. As awareness spread through collector magazines and early internet forums, demand grew and prices followed. Collectors today love this coin because it combines accessibility with excitement. You don't need a fortune to start looking. You don't need special equipment. All you need is patience, curiosity, and a good eye. It also represents a moment when everyday Americans rediscovered the thrill of coin hunting. People began checking their change again. Kids learned about mint errors. Families searched rolls of pennies together. That emotional connection matters in collecting. The 1995 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, especially the double-die variety, is a reminder that history isn't always locked behind museum glass. Sometimes it's hiding in your pocket. As you think about this coin, consider how many pennies you've handled without looking closely. How many small stories passed through your hands unnoticed. The next time you see a simple brown penny dated 1995, you might pause just a second longer. You might tilt it toward the light. You might check the letters more carefully. Because every now and then, the most ordinary object carries an extraordinary story. And in the world of coins, that possibility is what keeps collectors searching, hoping, and looking just one penny closer. What if I told you that a penny most people spend without a second thought might still be hiding a story worth knowing? And in rare cases, a value far higher than 1 cent. Today, we're uncovering the truth behind the 2006 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny, a coin millions of Americans have held, but very few have truly understood. The coin we're talking about today is the 2006 Lincoln penny with the D Mint mark. At first glance, it looks like an ordinary modern cent. Abraham Lincoln's familiar face is on the front, just like pennies you see every day. But this coin represents an important moment in U.S. coin history, and under the right conditions, it can become far more interesting than most people realize. The year 2006 sits in a unique place in American history. The country was deep into the modern era, but still using designs that dated back generations. The Lincoln penny design had already been in circulation for nearly a century. By 2006, it was one of the most recognized coins in the world. The D Mint mark tells us this penny was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the main facilities responsible for producing coins for everyday use across the western United States. Pennies like this were made in enormous numbers. In 2006 alone, billions of Lincoln cents were produced across U.S. mints to meet daily demand. The Denver Mint produced a massive share of them, which is why most 2006 D pennies you find today are considered common. But common does not mean meaningless. Each one is still a piece of American history, tied to a specific year, place, and moment in time. The Lincoln penny itself has a powerful story. First introduced in 1909 to honor Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 2006, Lincoln had been on the penny for 97 years, making him a constant presence in American pockets, purses, and cash registers. The 2006 issue continued that legacy, just a few years before major design changes were introduced in 2009. Let's talk about what makes this coin unique. The 2006 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce costs. Unlike older solid copper pennies, these modern cents are lighter and more vulnerable to damage. That's important because condition plays a huge role in value. On the front of the coin, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, Liberty to the left, and the year 2006 to the right. Just below the date is the small D Mint mark, indicating Denver. On the reverse side, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, a design that had been used since 1959. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, one of the smallest and most detailed elements ever placed on a U.S. coin. So if billions were made, why would anyone care about this penny? The answer lies in condition, errors, and collector demand. While most 2006 D pennies are worth only face value, a small percentage stand out due to minting mistakes or exceptional preservation. Errors are where things get interesting. Some 2006 D pennies were struck with off-center designs, meaning part of the image is shifted or missing. Others show doubled dies, where parts of the lettering or Lincoln's features appear doubled due to a misalignment during the minting process. There are also cases of die cracks, grease-filled dies, and improperly plated coins where the copper coating is uneven or missing. These errors happen during high-speed production. When millions of coins are struck every day, small mistakes can slip through quality control. Most people never notice them and spend them like ordinary change. But collectors actively search for these flaws, and they're willing to pay for them. Condition is another key factor. A 2006 penny that has been in circulation for years will show scratches, dull surfaces, and wear. That's normal. But coins that were pulled from circulation early or never circulated at all can look almost brand new. These are called uncirculated coins, and they're far more desirable to collectors. Professional grading services evaluate coins on a scale, with higher grades meaning better condition. A standard circulated 2006 penny is worth 1 cent, but a pristine example graded at the highest levels can sell for several dollars or more. That might not sound dramatic, but remember, that's a huge increase over face value. Real auction results help show the difference. Common circulated examples usually sell in bulk for very little, but uncirculated rolls and high-grade individual coins have sold online for noticeable premiums. Error coins are where prices climb even higher. Certain doubled die or off-center examples from 2006 have sold for tens or even hundreds of dollars, depending on severity and condition. These aren't fantasy prices or exaggerated claims. They're documented sales driven by collector demand. The key is that not every 2006 penny qualifies. Only specific examples with verified errors or exceptional quality attract serious attention. With that in mind, it's important to know how to identify a genuine coin. Start by checking the date and mint mark. The D should be clear and properly positioned under the year. Look closely at the lettering and Lincoln's face using a magnifying glass. If letters look doubled or blurry in a consistent way, that could indicate a genuine error. Next, check the weight. A standard 2006 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant differences could indicate damage or alteration. Be cautious of coins that appear artificially modified. Some people try to fake errors by scratching or altering coins, but these usually lack the natural flow and consistency of real mint errors. Authentic mint errors happen during production, not afterward. They tend to affect multiple parts of the coin in a uniform way. If you're unsure, experienced collectors or professional grading services can help confirm authenticity. There are also some surprising facts about the 2006 penny. Because it's zinc-based, if the copper coating is damaged, the coin can corrode more quickly than older pennies. That's why you might see bubbling or peeling on some examples. While this usually lowers value, certain plating errors can actually increase interest among collectors. Another interesting detail is how many people unknowingly collect these coins. Some saved rolls of pennies in 2006 without realizing it, simply because they were new at the time. Years later, those rolls may contain high-quality examples that have never been touched by circulation. Collectors today appreciate the 2006 penny not because it's ancient or rare by default, but because it represents modern American coinage at full production scale. It's a snapshot of how the U.S. Mint operated in the early 21st century, balancing cost efficiency with tradition. For new collectors, this coin is approachable. You don't need a fortune to start searching for valuable examples. All it takes is patience, curiosity, and attention to detail. That's part of the appeal. The hunt itself is rewarding. Experienced collectors also value these pennies as part of complete date and mint mark sets. Every Lincoln cent tells a chapter of a long-running story, and the 2006 issue is one of those chapters. So the next time you see a 2006 Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a closer look. Check the details. You might just be holding a small piece of history or even an overlooked error that others missed. Coins like this remind us that value isn't always obvious at first glance. Sometimes it's hidden in the details, waiting for someone curious enough to notice. And as you go through your change or old coin jars, remember this. The most ordinary-looking penny could still have an extraordinary story to tell. What if I told you that a small brown penny, the kind most people ignore or spend without a second thought, could hold a story tied to one of the most dramatic years in American history? A penny made the same year humans first walked on the moon. a penny that millions have seen, but very few have truly understood. Today, we're uncovering the real story behind the 1969 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny and why collectors still search their change for it decades later. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin produced by the United States Mint in Denver. The small letter D below the date tells us exactly where it was made. At first glance, it looks like a typical Lincoln penny, familiar and ordinary. But like many coins, its true value isn't just in what it's worth at the store. It's in the history it carries, the details stamped into metal, and the moments in time it represents. To understand this penny, we need to go back to the year 1969. America was in the middle of massive change. The Vietnam War dominated the news. Protests filled the streets. And in July of that year, the world watched as Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon. Money was moving fast through the economy, and the U.S. Mint was working nonstop to keep up with demand. Pennies were used everywhere, and billions were needed. The Lincoln cent design had already been around for more than 60 years by 1969. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. By 1969, Americans were deeply familiar with Lincoln's profile on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. The design symbolized stability during uncertain times. The Denver Mint struck a large number of pennies in 1969. Over 4 billion Lincoln cents were produced there that year. That means the 1969 D penny is not rare in everyday condition. Many are still found in old jars, drawers, and collections today. But abundance doesn't mean insignificance. This coin captures a snapshot of American life at the end of the 1960s. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is made primarily of copper. Specifically, it contains 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This was just a few years before rising copper prices would force the mint to change the penny's composition. Holding this coin means holding a piece of real copper history, heavier and warmer in tone than modern pennies. On the front of the coin, Abraham Lincoln faces to the right. The words "In God We Trust" appear above his head, with liberty on the left and the date 1969 on the right. Below the date is the small D mint mark, identifying Denver as its place of origin. The design was created by Victor David Brenner and has become one of the most recognized images in American coinage. The back of the coin features the Lincoln Memorial, which was used on pennies from 1959 until 2008. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial. Along the top edge are the words United States of America, and along the bottom is 1 cent. Above the memorial is the phrase E pluribus unum, meaning out of many one. So why do collectors pay attention to the 1969 D penny if it was made in such large numbers? The answer lies in condition, errors, and context. While most examples are worth only face value, some stand out due to how well they were preserved or because of unusual minting mistakes. Coins that were never heavily circulated can still show bright surfaces and sharp details. These are called uncirculated coins. A 1969 D penny in average circulated condition might be worth 1 cent. But in uncirculated condition, especially with full original luster, it can be worth several dollars. Coins graded by professional services at high mint state levels can sell for much more. Mint errors are another reason collectors examine this coin carefully. Errors can happen during striking, cutting, or planchet preparation. On 1969 D pennies, collectors have found off-center strikes, clipped planchets, weak strikes, and other small anomalies. These errors make a coin unique, and uniqueness is what drives collector interest. It's important to clear up one common point of confusion. One of the most famous and valuable Lincoln cents is the 1969 S double die obverse, which was made in San Francisco, not Denver. That coin has dramatic doubling in the date and lettering and can sell for tens of thousands of dollars. The 1969 D penny does not have this famous double die. However, minor doubling and other small variations can still appear, which is why careful inspection matters. Real auction results help put value into perspective. High-grade 1969 D pennies, certified by professional grading services, have sold at auction for anywhere from a few dollars to over $100, depending on condition. Error coins can bring more, sometimes several $100s, if the error is clear and attractive to collectors. Identifying a genuine 1969 D penny is simple. but identifying a valuable one takes patience. First, check the date and look for the D mint mark below it. Next, examine the coin's condition. Are the details sharp? Is the surface smooth without heavy scratches or corrosion? Original color matters too. Red or red-brown copper pennies are usually more desirable than dark brown ones. Use a magnifying glass to look for errors. Check the lettering for unusual shapes, look at the rim for missing sections, and inspect the overall strike. If something looks off in an unusual way, it might be worth further research or professional evaluation. Weighing the coin can also help. A genuine 1969 copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. Significant differences could indicate damage, alteration, or a different type of error. One surprising fact about the 1969 D penny is how many people unknowingly spent high-quality examples. During that time, few people saved coins in mint condition. As a result, truly pristine examples are far scarcer than the original mintage numbers suggest. This is why condition plays such a big role in value. Collectors today love this coin not because it's flashy, but because it's honest. It represents the everyday money Americans used during one of the most historic years of the 20th century. It passed through hands during the moon landing, the rise of modern culture, and major social change. For many collectors, the 1969 D penny is part of a larger Lincoln cent collection. Completing a full set, especially in matching condition, is a challenge that brings satisfaction. Others enjoy hunting for errors or upgrading to better examples over time. There's also nostalgia attached to this coin. Many people remember finding pennies like this in their childhood, maybe using them for candy, phone calls, or arcade games. Holding one today can instantly bring back memories of a different America. As time goes on, fewer high-quality examples remain. Copper pennies are no longer made the same way, and that alone gives older cents a special place in collections. While the 1969 D penny may not make headlines, it quietly continues to gain appreciation among those who understand its story. So the next time you see a 1969 penny with a small D under the date, don't dismiss it too quickly. Look a little closer. Check its condition. Think about where it's been and what it's seen. Sometimes the most overlooked coins are the ones that connect us most directly to history. And if you're curious about what other everyday coins might be hiding surprising stories or unexpected value, keep looking. Because in the world of coins, even a single cent can be worth far more than it seems. Most people think a penny from 2007 can't possibly be interesting. But what if I told you that one small detail on a 2007 Lincoln penny has made certain examples worth far more than 1 cent, and that millions of Americans have handled this coin without ever really seeing it? Today, we're talking about the 2007 D mint mark Lincoln penny. A coin that looks ordinary at first glance, yet quietly tells a story about American history, modern coin production, and the surprising mistakes that can turn pocket change into a collector's prize. The 2007 D Lincoln penny is a 1 cent coin produced by the United States Mint. The D mint mark means it was made in Denver, Colorado. This penny features the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front, a design that has been part of American life for generations. On the back, it carries the Lincoln Memorial, a symbol that connects the coin directly to one of the most important monuments in the United States. In 2007, pennies were still widely used in everyday transactions. Gas was cheaper than today, smartphones were just beginning to change daily life, and most people still carried cash. The U.S. Mint produced billions of pennies that year to keep up with demand, including a large number from the Denver Mint. These coins were never intended to be rare or valuable. They were made to circulate, to be spent, dropped into jars, and forgotten. To understand the 2007 D penny, it helps to look at its place in history. Abraham Lincoln first appeared on the penny in 1909, marking the 100th anniversary of his birth. By 2007, the Lincoln cent had been in circulation for nearly a century, making it one of the longest-running designs in American coinage. The Lincoln Memorial Reverse, introduced in 1959, was still being used in 2007, just 2 years before it would be replaced by new designs in 2009. That makes the 2007 D penny part of the final chapter of the Lincoln Memorial era. It represents the closing years of a design that many Americans grew up seeing every day. For collectors, coins from the end of a long-running design often carry special interest. especially when they mark a transition period in U.S. coin history. The 2007 D penny is made primarily of zinc, with a thin copper coating on the outside. This composition was introduced in 1982 to reduce production costs, replacing the older solid copper pennies. While the coin looks copper-colored, it is actually about 97.5% zinc. This change makes modern pennies lighter and more prone to damage, but it also plays a role in some of the errors that collectors look for. On the front of the coin, you'll see Lincoln's portrait facing right, along with the words "In God We Trust," "Liberty," and the date 2007. Just below the date is the small D mint mark. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial is shown in detail with the words "United States of America," "E pluribus unum," and 1 cent. At first glance, there is nothing flashy about this design. That's exactly why many people overlook it. But the true interest in the 2007 D penny comes from what went wrong during production. Most 2007 D pennies are worth exactly 1 cent. They are extremely common, and millions still circulate today. However, certain error coins from this year can be worth much more. Errors happen when something goes wrong during the minting process, and modern high-speed production actually makes some types of mistakes more likely. One known issue with some 2007 pennies is weak or missing details caused by worn dies. This can result in letters or parts of the design looking faded or incomplete. While minor wear is common, dramatic die errors can catch the attention of collectors. Another error that collectors look for is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin blank is not properly aligned when struck. If enough of the design is visible and the error is obvious, these coins can sell for significantly more than face value. There are also cases of clipped planchets, where part of the coin is missing because the metal sheet was cut incorrectly before striking. A genuine clipped 2007 D penny can be surprisingly valuable, especially if the clip is clean and clearly visible. Perhaps the most exciting errors are wrong planchet errors, where a penny is struck on a metal blank intended for a different coin. These are extremely rare, but when they occur, they can bring hundreds or even thousands of dollars at auction. Real-world sales show how much condition and errors matter. A normal 2007 D penny pulled from circulation is worth 1 cent. Even uncirculated examples usually sell for only a small premium, often a few cents to a couple of dollars. But error coins are a different story. Verified off-center strikes from 2007 D pennies have sold for $50 to over $200, depending on how dramatic the error is. Clipped planchet examples can sell in a similar range. More unusual errors, especially those certified by major grading companies, can bring even higher prices. While these are not million-dollar coins, they prove that even modern pennies can surprise collectors. Because these coins are modern and common, fakes do exist. Some people try to alter normal pennies to make them look like error coins. Learning how to identify a real 2007 D penny is important. First, look closely at the mint mark. On a genuine coin, the D is cleanly struck and matches known examples. Added or altered mint marks often look rough or improperly shaped. Next, check the weight. A normal 2007 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. Significant differences can indicate a wrong planchet or an altered coin. For error coins, natural mint errors usually show smooth metal flow and consistent patterns. Artificial damage often looks sharp, uneven, or suspicious. When in doubt, serious collectors rely on professional grading services to confirm authenticity. There are also some fun and surprising details about the 2007 D penny. Even though billions were made, many people still believe modern pennies have no collectible value at all. This belief causes rare errors to slip through unnoticed. Some of these coins were likely spent on coffee, dropped into tip jars, or rolled into bank wrappers without anyone realizing what they were. Another interesting fact is that 2007 pennies were produced during a time when the U.S. Mint was preparing for major changes. Just 2 years later, the Lincoln Bicentennial Cents would be released, featuring 4 different reverse designs. The 2007 D penny quietly represents the end of an era before that big shift. Collectors today appreciate the 2007 D penny not because it is rare, but because it is familiar. It reminds people of everyday life in the early 2000s. For beginners, it is an accessible coin that teaches an important lesson. Value isn't always about age. Sometimes it's about condition, mistakes, and timing. This coin also shows how modern collecting has changed. With online auctions and grading services, even small errors can be documented and shared. A coin that once would have gone unnoticed can now be recognized and appreciated by collectors around the country. So the next time you see a 2007 D. Lincoln penny, don't dismiss it too quickly. Take a moment to look at the details. Check the strike, the shape, the lettering. Most likely, it's just a penny. But once in a while, it could be something more. Coins like the 2007 D penny remind us that history isn't always locked away in museums. Sometimes, it's right there in your pocket, waiting for someone curious enough to notice.